hello, founder members of Ned's Atomic Dustbin. That's John, Alex and Dan. And we are here at JB's in Dudley. In a couple of hours' time we'll be taking the stage. JB's is a pretty special place for you, isn't it, as a venue?
Yeah, it is, because probably the first time we ever thought we got a proper gig was at JB's.
Right.
Because you've got to get past them liking your demo, and that was like the first time anyone had liked our demo, I think.
Right.
And they had things like PAs in JB's as well.
Monitors.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Stage.
And just a couple of years back, there was a 30th anniversary of JB's Club, which in fact was the sort of reunion for Ned's, wasn't it?
That's right. Because we knew the owner, we'd been the owner from the very start, Sam. He gave us a call and said, "Well, I'm celebrating. I'm going to have a big outdoor concert in the grounds of Dudley Castle, which is right behind us there.
Right.
We want to celebrate 30 years of the club. Any chance you could just get a couple of the Neds together and do a few Ned songs, because we go back so far." And I said, "I can't imagine it. Can't imagine that coming off, mate. I'll do my best."
Yeah.
And I persuaded Alex here. Dan was easy. And we got a couple of other lads that I'd had in Groundswell with me. And 5,000 people turned up.
Marvellous.
And all of a sudden we felt all loved and appreciated.
Are the two other lads the same ones that it's Martin and Andy that are playing tonight, yeah?
That's right, yeah,
Yeah,
they're still with us.
Where did you sort of meet them? How did they come into it?
Well, I found them when I was trying to recruit people for Groundswell. But it's as always, when you're trying to find people specifically, the people you audition are always rubbish and always totally the wrong people. And you stood in the pub in despair and someone walks up and says, "Oh, I'll play bass for you then," or "I'll play guitar." And
Right.
they were friends of each other and a friend of a friend, and that's always seems to be the way things happen. I think that was the way it happened with us as well.
And this is a rare appearance tonight, isn't it? I mean, it's one of 4 this year, so it's at the moment Ned's is a as and when kind of project, is it? Yeah.
Yeah, we've got no real plans to do anything. Just things keep cropping up. The more we say no, and the less interested we are, the more people start phoning us up and asking us to do things. Which is quite a nice experience.
And the more you enjoy the gigs as well,
Yeah,
presumably.
absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So let's go back right to the start of this band, and even a bit before that, because you were called various things by the press. I know you don't like labels, but you were called saviours of Britpop was one of the things. But let's go back to the mid-80s, which was an interesting 10 years for music anyway. And each of you, if you can tell me, what kind of music were you listening to before Ned's came to be?
Well, I was a new romantic, I confess. And then, because of my brother, I got into things like the Sisters of Mercy and the Teardrop Explodes and Julian Cope and that kind of thing. So that's the kind of stuff I was listening to
And
at the
Alex,
time.
what are you into?
Joy Division and New Order were my main influences because of the bass playing, Peter Hook's bass playing.
Right.
Used to play melodies and tunes on the bass.
Chords.
That's the first time I ever heard anyone do that.
Right.
So I basically wanted to sort of copy that style but add some other influences. I was listening to Dinosaur Jr. and Husker Du and other bands, sort of guitar bands from the late 80s.
Right. How about you, Dan?
Yeah, well, there was a running joke at the time that the only band I liked was Kidding Joke, which was, well, it was kind of true, but maybe not totally. I'm kind of into some pretty uncool bands as well, like Yes and things like that. I'd have to edit that out though. Yeah.
Prog rock?
Yeah, prog rock, yeah.
First rehearsal we had, one of us, wasn't me, I don't know who it was, turned to Dan and said, "So what sort of music do you like then, Dan?" And he just went, "The Joke."
But I was drumming for a heavy metal guitarist at the time, I remember.
Yeah.
So it was kind of quite eclectic.
And the next question you must have been asked about 5,000 times. You know what it is. Why 2 bass guitarists when you decided to form the band?
Well, because my bass playing style, as I said earlier, was based on Peter Hook's style, which is about chords and melodies and only using the thin strings in layman's terms. And Matt's the original other bass player, he was into the Stranglers and things like that. And so it just kind of gelled. It wasn't an accident, but we didn't really think about it too much either.
We couldn't get rid of either of them.
Yeah.
When the joke as well at the time was that I think basically I was the odd man out because I was the only person in the Neds that wasn't a bass player.
Right.
Because basically I think we got, other than Alex, we got everyone to swap an instrument for something else. Because I'm pretty sure that when Dan first come along, he didn't really want to come along, he wanted to play bass at the time because you were playing bass.
Oh, right.
And
You too.
Rat the guitarist was a bass player,
Right.
whose brother had taught him a couple of chords.
Dan's
So you nearly
actually,
had a band with 4 bass players?
yeah.
Indeed.
That's right. So we had 4, so you're bloody lucky. We whittled it down to 2.
Yeah. And when you're thinking, once it was down to 2, that this is going to be very different of what anybody else doing at the scene at the time, and it's going to have an effect on your sound, obviously. Did you think in those terms, or you just thought, right, let's just wing it and see
We
what
knew it
happens?
had an effect on the sound, but it was never a contrived thing. We didn't sort of do it to be different or do it for novelty, which the press kind of misread.
Right.
It just seemed natural. We just did it. We never really thought about the whys and wherefores. It just sounded good, basically.
Right.
If you can imagine that we never had a rehearsal without 2 basses. So you know it's day one.
Yeah.
So it's only going to mould to what you've got. You know, the personnel that you've got.
So it's 1987, and you're at college. You meet up at college, and you start thinking about going out and gigging just for the sheer hell of it. Are you already writing songs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was straight from the beginning you were doing your own songs.
Yeah.
And the thing that amazes me when sort of reading around Neds and the history of Neds is that all of you in the band were going to write. It's not going to be it's going to be a democratic band. Now, is there such a thing as a democratic band?
They've got a time limit. The democracy falls down around your ears eventually. But
Right.
it's a lovely idea, and I think we did admirably well at it for a long time, didn't we? Part of it, I think, part of the reason that it was that way was that, in a nice way, we were kind of in competition with each other within the same band. It was almost as if, not like you were trying to prove your worth for being in the band, but just to kind of say, well, I'm worth having here. And everyone having their own kind of styles they were coming from and tastes that they were coming into the band from. It was kind of obvious we were going to have a unique kind of sound if we were going to be able to keep everybody's tastes happy, you know, and satisfied.
Yeah. And 3 years on, you know, it was your melodies, your pop melodies with a sort of guitar sound that was your trademark. Who was the melodicist in the band, or did it vary from one song to another? Was one of you the hook
I
man?
think mainly Alex or Rat would come in with a particular idea, and both have melodic ideas in their own way, on guitar or on bass, and everything else would kind of fit around it. But it was a long process, whereas in songs, very laborious, because you know, somebody would come in with an idea, and then immediately somebody else would go, oh shit, can't use that.
And it's a hard setup to work with if you're all trying to write songs. If you all want to write songs together, you can't write on the road. We never wrote anything when we were touring. We had to be in a rehearsal studio and stay somewhere for at least a couple of weeks.
Right.
So that was why there was sort of delays between the albums, because we'd spend such a long time touring that you know it was just a bit of a nightmare to write new stuff.
And the name Ned's Atomic Dustbin is the Goon Show. Which one of you is the Goon Show freak?
It's me, I confess. if there's anything we could be vaguely embarrassed about, generally speaking, you can say it came from me. No, but when I was a kid, my mum used to read Goon Show scripts to me and do all the silly voices. I mean, people watching this might not even know anything about the Goons, but it was all about silly voices because it was radio play, and that's what my mum used to do when I was a kid. And we had a book of scripts. One of the scripts was called Ned's Atomic Dustbin, and when you're trying to think of a name no one else is going to think of, you see something like that, then it's got some appeal. But it's a double-edged blade, believe me.
And the haircuts, they were pretty radical as well for the time. Have you decided on those?
That wasn't a decision either. Most of what we've ever done as a band has been a complete accident.
Like the shorts and the t-shirt, that all just sort of came about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And in 87, 88, you were on the Stourbridge scene a lot, but you also got some nice sort of supports with the Wonder Stuff and Pop Elite itself. You were just gigging constantly, were you? That you were sort of learning your trade. Is that how you describe it? Yeah.
I would say that, you know, given an opportunity, it's not necessarily guaranteed that you're gonna do well and that people are gonna get into your music. But if you recognise the opportunity and you like really go for it when you get it, you at the very least going to learn part of what it takes to be a good band, to at least be a good live band, you know. And at the time, the whole thing about the Stourbridge scene, and I suppose the wider countrywide scene, was that people could go out and earn their audience, you know. Play in front of people. Playing in front of people was not a difficult thing to do, as long as JB's liked your tape, you know, or whatever. And you got that opportunity to win people over.
But you must have had a fair amount of ambition as well, because you were saying earlier you were doing the toilet scene for a bit, you know, the toilet venue scene with tiny venues with not many people there. That must have required a bit of guts to keep going at that.
But there was always a progression.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, from that one particular toilet to made again, a good support tour or something like that.
Right.
So there was, I think there was always a progression, which made it obviously more worthwhile.
And the first big hike up on the Good Support tour was with the Wonder Stuff, wasn't it? In
That's right,
89, late 89.
The Hup tour, you know, like as I was saying, if there's an audience to play to, you can earn your audience, and obviously that was the case with these Wonder Stuff shows. People were turning up. The moment the doors were opened, there were a few hundred people to play to, and great, you know, they're excited to be there to see you, and it's a fantastic opportunity, you know.
Yeah, and there was another player, there was Matt and Rat obviously in the band, but there was another player behind the scenes who was also very important in getting you really moving in 1990, which was Ned's sort of really first big year, and that's a guy called Tank. Tell me about Tank.
That's right.
We first met Tank at Coventry Polytechnic. We had before we did the Wonder Stuff tour, we got 2 gigs with Pop Will Eat Itself, and he came to the gig and after the show said, "I thought you were great, I'd like to manage you."
Right.
And so that from then onwards, he'd never managed a band before, and so we kind of all learnt the whole experience together.
Right.
Slightly on tune, because he actually said we were crap.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
I forgot that.
But kind of crap in a good way. So he obviously
We were so
Crap,
bad we were
but you
good.
could go places.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We'd got something,
Yeah.
maybe a touch of pox or something, I'm not sure. But we got something about us.
Right.
But he was a T-shirt seller as well, so I think he got a selling head on, you know.
Right.
And
A
I think
marketing head, yeah.
he could probably see something T-shirt wise and
Right.
a bit quirky about us, perhaps. So
Yeah.
but he was a big influence, really.
And the Ingredients EP, that was another step up, wasn't it? How did you make that? How did you write the songs for it? How quickly did it come together? Because you were on the road the whole time, you know.
Those songs we'd written from the very early days, basically. So
Right.
before we got tours or anything like that, we just were doing the odd concert here and there. But so they've been around for a while.
Right. And basically Sony picked up on it. Simple
Well,
as that.
initially we had an independent deal with a local label for the first 3 singles,
Right.
and it wasn't until the 4th single that we signed to Sony, which Happy was the
Right.
4th single.
Right. And then after Happy, there was that same time there was the Reading Festival.
That's right.
Compared to clubs, I read somewhere that you actually prefer festivals because people can vomit into mud and do things that people want to do that they feel a bit inhibited about doing in clubs. Is that about right?
I don't know
Is that
about
a
that.
misquote?
Probably a misquote. I think, you know, every gig's got its own merits and downfalls, and playing something like Reading completely blew our minds. I think, you know, we were first on a Friday or a Saturday, I can't even remember, but it was such a different experience to play in a club that I wouldn't be surprised if at the time we were all enthusing. Oh, yeah, you can fall over and be sick and it doesn't matter, and you can do this, that and the other.
Right.
But, you know, every kind of gig's got its own kind of merits, you know.
Right. And at that time, labels were being thrown around all over the place about what was going on at music at the time. And some of the ones that you were called were indie pop, Brit pop, alternative heavy, guitar thrash. Any of those that you feel comfortable with?
None, all.
You were.
You know, they're all. People would find it difficult to pigeonhole us, and I think when people do that, then you know you're onto a winner. You know, we did fall into all of those brackets, I suppose, didn't we? But we were none of them specifically. You know, And again, that's down to the way we were writing stuff and the way we set things up. We were 5 different people. It was bound to be a bit of a mishmash, an eclectic mix of different styles, you know.
And when it came to recording Godfather, your first album, was the material basically there? Had you written it?
Yeah, the whole of Godfather was the first 12 songs we wrote, really, pretty much.
Your first album's easy, isn't it? Because they're already written.
Yeah.
So when you get to your second album, when you've got to write a complete batch of new songs, where problems come in.
Did you ever reckon you'd get in the top 20 singles?
No.
I remember us sitting outside Dingwalls in Camden just before the Ingredients EP came out, talking about where we were going to put all the spare copies we don't sell in our lofts. You know, we were always thinking of underachieving. You know, I don't think, unless anyone was quietly confident, together, generally speaking, I think we were all kind of, it'll all stop soon. We've done well so far, but you know, we've been lucky and it can't go to the next level. Oh, it has. Oh, well, it can't do the next level, and oh, it did. And you know, that way it's great because you're not thinking miles ahead, and everything new that happens is exciting, and that's what keeps you going, keeps you on the road, and keeps you writing. You know.
And Godfather, did you see that as being did you imagine it would be as successful as it was?
We knew the songs were liked by people because we toured them so much, so we knew there was a fan base there to buy it. So all we wanted really was the airplay to get new people involved.
Which you got.
Yeah.
And then I read somewhere that once it was the big time, you had a lot of personal problems within the band. Are you happy to talk about those now, or would you just start more beyond that?
During Godfather and the tours around that, everything was fine. It was just the pressure of writing the next record, because you know we were on tour, we couldn't stay in one place, which we needed to do to write new songs, and so that created a lot of tension. And also America picked up on Godfather a year after England, so we had to retour all the old songs again in America for another year. And I think we were quite frustrated. We just wanted to write some new material. But you know, the people that had just heard Godfather wanted to see the band, so we were kind of torn between two things, and that created tension in the band.
Did you enjoy America?
Yeah.
It was a fantastic adventure the first time we got there.
It's the best place on earth for a rock band to play, really. It's the whole lifestyle is geared for rock and roll, basically.
Yeah. So just the mechanics of it and going to stadiums. What kind of bands were you playing with? What on the same bill as?
Well, the biggest, most significant tour was with Jesus Jones, and we were main support for them. Yeah, main support for them while they were number one with Right Here, Right Now. So it was a major coup, kind of, but not really, because we toured with them in this country and we kind of knew them, sort of knew them. And I mean that was a major tour to be doing.
So I get the impression that your second album, the crucial follow-up album, was done under considerable pressure of time, wasn't it?
Yeah.
For the actual writing part of it. Were you happy with it when it came out? Were you pleased with the actual product? NME loved you and you got good critic reviews. Were you happy with the album yourself?
I think largely we were really happy with the songs, and there was some discussion after about the production and whether it was doing the songs justice, although it was produced by a very famous producer, Andy Wallace, who mixed Nevermind and some other great albums. But I don't know if the two things gelled, if we gelled with his style of production, really.
I think that perhaps at that point, that's
background noise from a sound check. Soldier on.
I think at that point, it's probably when the first cracks of being the democracy that we were maybe started appearing, because yet another opinion came in, and one that wanted to satisfy everybody. And when I think what we wanted to do with the second album, as we'd want to do with every album, is to take a step forwards, to move things on a little bit. It's kind of securing your pension with your audience, you know, it's kind of make them know that you want to be adventurous and you want to move on, that you're not going to make the same record over and over, which seems to be the safe way of doing things these days. But, so it was difficult to make the kind of changes we wanted to make and kind of push them to the whole realisation of where they were going. I think perhaps we did that with the third album more, and perhaps it was a real tall order for the producer. to satisfy all those things.
Right.
You've got a mix where everything's louder than everything else, and
Right.
perhaps at some point, more often, we could have gone, well, we don't need that there, so let's drop it out.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of thing.
You
That's
ma-
only my opinion, of course.
You mentioned about keeping your audience. You know, when you started in '88 through until '92, which was Are You Normal, and then '95 for Brain Blood Volume. That's a fair old span. Did you keep your audience, or did audiences change? Because your stance was you mirrored the audience. You were the opposite of the rock star attitude, the ego attitude. Did that kind of thing stay with you throughout? Did you have pressures to get a bit larger than the anti-hero?
I think the title of the second album was an acknowledgement of the fact that a lot of what was being said about us, and realistically I'd say that it was more what was said about us than what we were saying about ourselves,
Right.
about us being like our audience. That title was saying, well look, you know, actually it's a nice idea that you're the same as your crowd, but we've just been around the world twice. We've been on top of the pops, we've done this, that and the other.
Yeah.
How can we be normal now? We're not,
All
you know.
right. Right.
We're not vindictive and we're not up our own backsides, but no, we're not normal and we're not
Yeah.
our crowd.
Yeah.
We're a band that they come to see, and we've got a lot of respect for them as they have for us, but
Yeah.
we're not man on the street anymore. You
Yeah.
know, we've
Right.
kind of, we're big stars now. you
So
know.
that was
You know.
that was the subtext of that album.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then because that album was made under pressure of time, you decided that the next one would not be. And then you took that one to its bloody extreme.
Yeah.
You nearly
Yeah.
split up.
Yeah. We wrote it twice. We scared the
You
life
binned
out
the whole
of it.
album, didn't you?
Well, not a whole album, but a good enough songs for an album.
Right.
But we scared the life out of the manager, the label, everybody.
We lost the plot completely. We were in a massive cottage in Wales for about 3 months with a cellar full of vintage red wine, and basically we didn't actually produce much from that period. We produced about 3 songs, I think.
Right.
But,
And quite down ones.
yeah.
I read somewhere that if you want to write sad songs, go to Wales. If you want to write happy songs, go to Brighton. Was that your
That
sort
sounds
of...
about right.
That was
yeah.
your shot, was it?
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, and we at one point we were going to do a concept album called The Sugared Dodo, and we actually had more songs for the concept album called The Sugared Dodo than we had for Brain Blood Volume.
Right.
Most of the songs were in French, with me singing lead vocals.
Really?
Yeah.
It's getting as wild as that.
Yeah, so,
Yeah,
Yeah.
my role was generally to pour the wine.
so you can imagine the manager turning up with the A&R man to this cottage in Wales, and we're all drunk in the practice room singing in French, talking about concept albums.
And the deadline's next week.
Yeah, so they kind of left as soon as they arrived, just kind of did an about turn and left.
Right.
We knew we had problems at this point.
Right. But even there was a kind of concept behind Brain Blood Volume, wasn't there? That was
Yeah.
not just red wine.
No, it was something that came from Dan, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Like,
I just came across an interesting story about trepanning and the effect it has on the brain and things like
do
that.
you want to explain what trepanning is?
If you want to,
Go on.
I could have done
Explain,
it.
Well, you-
explain
All right.
trepanning, Dan.
Trepanning is when you drill a little tiny hole in your skull, which obviously relieves a pressure on the brain and brings you back to your sort of childlike state.
The
Yeah.
higher state of consciousness,
Oh, right.
apparently.
Yeah.
Right.
But
Right.
we've never tried
And
it.
it has been done.
It has been done.
In fact, the manager went along to see a very famous lady whose name escapes me now, who sort of brought it into the public eye in the 60s. Oh, I do wish I remember it now, but I don't. So yeah, we kind of looked into it. Thought it was pretty interesting. John got wind of it and sort of wrote a couple of songs off the album, kind of vaguely. I don't know.
Borehole.
Yeah.
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Not
You're
very
the word
subtle.
man in the band, John, aren't you? You're the lyrics man, mainly.
yeah. Yeah,
Most of the lyrics are yours. Are there any sort of notable exceptions to that?
The most notable exception is, we might as well talk about the song everyone talks about now anyway, is Kill Your Television. And that song was a happy accident in pretty much the most definitive way any happy accident could be. You know, the title of the song came from the fact that Alex had put a sticker on his bass that said "Kill your television."
Which I bought in Mystic, Connecticut, when I went there with a friend from college.
Right.
And I just saw a sticker next to a pizza place and bought it, put it on my bass, and John thought it was a good idea for the song.
Right.
But it was actually Matt that wrote the lyrics, or
right.
some of them, wasn't it?
He wrote all the lyrics other than "Kill your television," and I came up with "Soap for Sore Eyes."
That's a great
Need
idea.
an intermission. Yeah.
Right.
But when we were actually playing a song in rehearsal, it was definitely a thin line between whether we were going to carry on doing it or not, because it was kind of a piss take, wasn't it? We were sort of,
That's right.
we were clowning about. I mean, the nature of the choruses is it's ridiculous. You know, you play, stop, and then get poor old Alex here to do a plang on his bass. So it very nearly didn't make it as an actual proper song, but
Amazing.
when we started deciding, well, okay, we'll keep playing it, I couldn't think of anything at all to put in there. I couldn't think of anything lyrically, because it was so kind of stoppy-starty and madcap. And then Matt had written this poem about a month before and said, if you ever get a chance to use this. He'd done it a few times and I'd always kind of, yeah, right. You know, but this was really good, and it was perfect for the verses of Kill Your TV.
Right. Now you put so much effort and time and angst. You've been very polite. You really underplayed it, because things did get sort of quite heavy, didn't they? For Brain Blood Volume, it was not an entirely happy time. Was there anything that could have rewarded you and said, right, it was worthwhile? Was there a reward in the final product? Were you pleased with it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were all really pleased with the third album, definitely.
Yeah, still are today as
Yeah.
well.
And probably more kind of universally pleased with it than we were with any of the other records, you know.
Right.
Plus, for me personally, the real bonus is the fact that the last single we released actually got more airplay in this country than any other single. And although I wouldn't want it to finish, you know, it was a nice way to finish.
Right.
Kind of surprised a few people. In fact, there's a story behind that as well, that when the plugger went into Radio 1 with it, he refused to tell them what the band was called. He just said, will you play this? And they said, well, who's the band? And he said, well, tell me whether you play it first. And he said, no, well, tell me who the band is. And there was a bit of a standoff. And eventually they agreed, without knowing who the band was, that they'd put it on the list. And they had it in writing that it was going on the B list, wasn't it?
All right.
And
Yeah.
then they told them, and they were mighty miffed that they managed to get an Atomic Dustbin song on their playlist. So it was a big kind of two fingers up, and nice way to go out, really.
Maybe Status Quo should try the same technique.
Yeah, yeah. Or Cliff.
But then, smart ass question, this within 6 months, the band split. Why?
That's a long story. We were going to America to do a tour, and Brain Blood Volume had just been released, hadn't it?
Yeah.
And we got to Florida. We just flew in, and it was the day before the first gig of a 6-week American tour, and we got a phone call from the record company saying that they were going to drop us. So we just
Just to
arrived.
motivate you.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
So we decided we can either go home and weep and get on the dole queue, or we can stay here and treat it like a holiday and just have a laugh and get back to our roots of actually, you know, really enjoying the whole experience again, because we knew it was going to end after 6 weeks. So that's what we did. We just went for it and played some great concerts. It was a really good time.
It was.
Right. Knowing that was
Yeah.
like the farewell tour.
Yeah.
With a bang, not a whimper.
Right.
So
And
last-
what did you think of the, by that time, this is 95, and there is a very different scene from the one that you began. What did you think of the scene? What did you think of the Oasis syndrome and all that, all the bands that were coming up around that time?
I think we actually split up and stopped talking to each other before Oasis were around.
I don't know.
I remember reading an interview in one of the papers, and it was a Suede interview.
Right.
And I think this was when I realised that basically our number was up. It was all about the fact that people wanted pop stars. They wanted rock stars back. Enough of this, us and our crowd. Enough of this, I'm the same as my punter is, and you know, and we're singing songs that mean things to you and all this kind of stuff. No, people wanted their heroes back again. And so people like Brett Anderson come along, he looks good, he acts the rock star, he's the part, you know. Followed by loads and loads of other bands with the same kind of attitude. And at the time I thought, yeah, how are we going to step back from this one, you know? How are we going to suddenly be rock stars when, you know, we're kind of in a kind of a weird middle ground. We've lived the life of rock stars, but we've never really behaved like them, you know. And
Not in public, anyway.
not in public, yeah, you should see in private.
Well, John Alexander, it's been great talking to you. This isn't the end of the interview because now you're going to interview John about the songs that are going to be on the set list tonight, because the songs are obviously some of the background to it are not immediately sort of obvious. So we'll take a quick break, have a great gig tonight. It's been great talking to you. And you two take over and ask John about the songs.
Cheers. Not sleeping around, John. What are the lyrics about?
It's about being in a relationship and how it makes you all blinkered about what it's like not to be in a relationship because you've only been sleeping with one person.
Does that make sense?
Probably not, no.
Is it about being faithful and not actually sleeping around?
It's about the consequences of being faithful. So it's not necessarily saying it's a great thing, it's just pragmatic.
Is it from your own experience?
Yes.
Okay.
Happy.
I was going to do that one. Okay, John, tell me about Happy.
Happy is about having what you're used to swept from under your feet, so that you're not kind of able to ground yourself properly, to not know what you're doing.
And we're glad to have those lyrics to our most popular hit.
Yes, I was very glad to add those lyrics to my most popular hit. My most popular hit? Mine? No one else's. Now, a couple of interviews said that I was going on about my dad in it, and that was quite bad at the time. But I was going about my dad, so oops. Next.
Cut up.
Cut up.
It's about me whining on about my girlfriend falling out with me and realising everyone was sick to death of hearing me moan about it.
So they are kind of a few of the songs about relationships then, yeah.
They are, yeah. I used to deny it outright most of the time that it was about me, but I kind of didn't want people pushing too far to find out, you see. Next.
Selfish.
What's selfish about, John? Is it about somebody being selfish?
Yes, it is.
Is it about you being selfish?
No, it's about someone else being selfish towards me.
Really?
Yeah.
Was it male or female?
It was female.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds like, you know, you've gone through the mill a bit with this one.
To be honest, it's one of them ones where I'm sure I knew what I was on about at the time, but I haven't got a clue now.
Walking through syrup.
Okay, John, tell me about Walking Through Syrup.
Walking Through Syrup is about the kind of people you encounter the first time you get to America and do a tour there.
What sort of people do you encounter?
Kind of people who don't seem to think about who they are, who you are, or anything, just think about the whole kind of dream of what being in a band's all about. And they kind of made me feel tired because they're so up all the time. So I felt like walking through syrup.
Are you a happy person?
No, I'm a manic depressive, and I can only write good lyrics if I'm really, really pissed off.
Capital letters.
Capital letters.
It's about the way being mental about somebody affects your physical being.
Another girl was this?
This was another girl, but it wasn't me, you see. I was writing about the way someone I knew really well was being affected by the girl that they'd fallen for, you see.
I remember you explaining to me the line, she'll break some hearts when she grows up, because you saw a small, young girl in the street, and you actually said it to our manager as you went past. She was actually below the legal age. Is this true?
It's true. Sorry.
Well done, Al. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, thanks, mate.
Should appreciate it.
Stuck.
Go on, Al.
Stuck, John, what's that about?
It's, you made your bed, you lie in it. Should we do it again?
I'm stuck.
Stuck. What's stuck about, John?
It's basically saying, you made your bed, you lie in it. You know, if stuck is what you say, that's what you've made, and you make your own look.
Was this autobiographical?
No, it wasn't. It was about somebody very close to me at the time.
Was it?
Yeah, and it wasn't you or Dan.
Aren't we close to you?
Is there any about me or Alex? This will be a first.
It's for me too.
I
I can't remember. If one comes up, I'll tell you. I'll be honest.
Trust.
What's trust about?
To be perfectly honest, I'm not sure what trust's about. I don't really know.
What's the chorus line?
All I know is we've lost control, he said. All I know.
Maybe
I lay no blame. I think it's kind of about
And the
when-
record company may just maybe do something we don't want to do. That's what it means, isn't it?
could be,
You know,
could be.
you know, you don't feel you're in charge of your own destiny anymore.
A lot of the songs, like He Said, She Said, the third person,
Hmm.
what's the relevance of this? Do you prefer to talk in the third person rather than the first person because you might be sort of embarrassed about the intentions of some of the lyrics?
I think you're right with a lot of songs, but also I did like to write as if I was people watching as well, as if I was kind of looking at other people's situations and being all righteous about them, like I was sound.
Nothing like.
Nothing like.
The girlfriend I whinged about all the time we cut up dumped me, and I found a new girlfriend who I'm still with, and I was snogging her outside the old JB's club when her sister walked past, and I said, oh shit, it's her sister, I don't want to see her. And my current girlfriend said, don't worry, you don't look nothing like yourself. And that was it.
Sorry, I don't understand. You don't look nothing like yourself.
Yeah. What she was saying was, she's not going to recognise you.
Okay.
Which was a bit silly really, because of course she would.
Is it because you were famous by this point and that she wouldn't recognise the sheer godlike status?
Absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head there, mate. Definitely. Yeah.
Intact.
Intact, John. Tell me about that.
Can you think of the lyrics?
Virginity.
Yeah, I was going to say.
It's about virginity. It's about
Are you a virgin?
yes, no. No, I think what it's about is you can get really paranoid. I think about your partner's first time. It's about your partner's first time. It's about like the fact that somebody else was there first, not even before you, but first. That's what Intact's about. Because you can never get rid of that if you let yourself obsess about it, which of course I never would. You know what I mean?
It says you will kill me someday.
Yeah.
What will kill you, and what's the someday referring to?
I think I stuck that chorus onto different lyrics, and they just about I got away with putting them there.
I once looked at some rough ideas from lyrics of yours, and there was a line that said, "Nobody loves a wet dog." You didn't actually incorporate this into any of our songs. Is this something you're still mulling over?
Boy, did I try! I really wanted. I wanted to do that, and I wanted. What was the other one? I think I got that from watching Doctor and the Medics, and they got a song called "Nobody Loves You If You Got Brown Shoes," and I thought that was appalling, and I could probably do just as bad. I did my best.
And you did.
I did on many occasions, I think.
Until you find out.
Boys on tour, what the missus doesn't see, can't
Yeah,
help
gotta
it.
go back a bit, John.
Oh shit, God, sorry, yeah.
What's Until You Find Out about?
It's about the boys on tour. Little woman at home.
Shit, sorry. Sort of turn that off. I'll just reject it, turn it off.
Yeah.
Sorry, lads. We're on now. Right, okay.
Until you find out.
What's Until You Find Out about, John?
It's about the boys are on the road and the girlfriends back home don't know what's going on, and as long as they don't know, then it's not going to hurt them, so on and so forth. But of course, it wouldn't apply to me because I was totally faithful the whole time.
It's like being locked out when the phone rings.
I don't know, mate. Frustration. A metaphor for frustration.
Bite.
Bite, John.
Read a review of the Wonder Stuff when we were supporting them, that slated them from a gig that was really good, and tried to imagine what it'd be like to get a slating, let alone a good review. So I'm kind of implying, you know, if I stumble, you will bite. The minute I do anything wrong, you know, you'll be onto it like a rash. That's what that was about.
Scrawl.
What's Scrawl about, Jonn?
Scrawl's about leaving your mark on the world.
It's not meant to sound things to you.
It'll be about 4 minutes.
Literally, we're nearly at the end of the thing. Sorry, Vern.
Go back. What was that one? Bite.
Scrawl.
Scroll.
Scrawl, what's that about, Jonn?
Scrawl's just about leaving your mark on the world. That's all it's about, basically.
Do you feel that you've left your mark?
I think so, yeah. Ruddy, great, dirty brown one, probably.
Kill Your Television.
Kill Your Television, one of our most popular songs. What are the lyrics about, Jonn?
I've no idea because Matt wrote them. But I did come up with Soap for Sore Eyes, which I thought was quite a nice bit of alliteration. Irrelevant, obviously, to the song, but you know, what do you do? Oh, soap operas. Here you go, clever.
Song 11.
Song 11.
Song 11 defines the state we were in when we did Brain Blood Volume. It's about whether we stay together, stick it out and actually make an album together, or kill each other. And that's what it was all about. We needed 11 songs for the album. It was the 11th song, and it could take forever, and it felt like it did.
Aim, Jonn.
Just a quip someone said, it was just a joke, someone said, been missing you, baby, can't get a good aim. And I just thought it was funny, and that was that.
It's funny, Jonn.
We're getting gradually less meaningful as we go along, aren't we? You notice?
Yeah.
Plug me in.
Oh God, I have no idea.
You haven't said plug me in yet. Plug me in.
No idea. I really don't know what I was talking about. And I must admit that the lyrics to Plug Me In are probably the ones I'm most embarrassed of that actually got released.
What are some of the lines?
I could try to escape the American super bomb, but it's no use. Well, I could never decide which it was, but when we recorded it, I said bomb. But it's no use and it's no fun. And what does that mean? I have no idea. I don't know.
Grey Cell Green.
Go on then, Jonn. Grey Cell Green.
Well, if you've got half an hour. It's Greenpeace's national anthem. But nobody ever knew, so it obviously wasn't that effective. But what I was trying to say, clumsily, was that you only notice when green cells, plants and stuff have gone. Right? Oh God.
Talking about foliage, Jonn.
Foliage. You only realise when it's too late. So your grey cells, right, they only realise that the green cells are dead when it's too late. Right.
I've never understood this.
No. Well, I must admit, it took me a while myself. But the whole thing about desire is what I'm trying to say is that, like, as long as we get what we want, it don't matter. So we can cut down the rainforests and be horrible for the planet. It doesn't matter because, you know, it's our desire that matters. What we want.
Terminally Groovy.
Terminally Groovy, what's that one about?
Well, me and Matt co-wrote this one, and it's about shagging. It's the idea of a woman being capable of shagging you to death, I think, basically. We had about 19 verses. They got increasingly more rugby song-esque as it went along.
Titch.
Titch, Jonn.
This one's autobiographical.
We were recording a second album at Rockfield Studio, and they got a picture on the wall of this bizarre Victorian picture, and all it said at the bottom of it was Titch. So I thought, well, that's a really nice song title. Now I need to write some lyrics that have got anything to do with it. And it's just about having a real low self-opinion of yourself within a relationship. So, you know, you're saying that, like, till I can sleep with my disappointments, you're going to sleep with yours. You know, you're going to sleep with me.
You said that it was about having a small penis.
It was as well. No, I said that because I didn't want to actually say what it was really about. Which is pretty bad, because that would be embarrassing, yeah. So I went round telling everyone I was a...